how sad Ghislaine Maxwell's life was. You think my life is sad. Oh no, my life wasn't sad. I started out with nothing. I rebuilt my life. I'm an intelligent, talented person. I did a lot considering what I had against me. And, the same degenerates that destroy everything destroyed me. But even with what they've done to me, I do a lot. Like, I experience a lot of love every day. I love animals. I would be helping people. I told this story before. Once I recovered from my crisis, I wanted to go into helping animals. I wanted to be a veterinarian, but I went into human nursing because I thought to myself, at the time I didn't have insight into my social disorder, that it was the origin of a lot of things I went through. And I thought I could cure myself the way I was curing myself of other issues, right? So I thought if I immerse myself in a social situation that's hard for me, I'll eventually get over this. I mean, over the years, I learned that's not how that works. You just learn skills, you learn coping strategies, but you can never get over being neuroatypical. It will always be there. So I'll always be a little different in ways. But at the time, I assumed it was like a lot of other things I had to overcome, like my anxiety leaving the house. You just force yourself to do it, and eventually it gets easier. I thought it was like when I had an eating disorder, even like you just have to undo that conditioning and eventually it'll get easier. And I thought that my social problems were like that. Like it was because of my avoidance I was in this situation. So if I stop avoiding, I'll just snap out of it eventually. But then it never happened. And instead, in its place was like learning skills, but I never, ever, ever got over it. And I learned now that's because I'm social disordered. That's what you can expect. Like you'll always have differences in how you're processing stimuli. You always have differences in how you process social situations. That will never go away. It's neurological level. But the strategy of completely avoiding it and not learning skills you have control over. And so that was what the outcome was. But at the time, I thought like I could just become a normie if I just keep forcing it, if I just keep going to a bar, if I just keep becoming a nurse, eventually I'll be normal. Thinking like this is because of an entrenched pattern of avoidance and anxiety. Not realizing that's not the case, and that's why it didn't work so well for that, but it worked for other things where it was absolutely a learned behavior and a learned conditioning process that I can, after enough time, undo. Right. So yeah, when I was working on overcoming everything I had gone through, I had both a physical disorder that was making my mental health much worse, and I had gotten a big piece of help, a metabolic diet that would control the hormonal disorder that was triggering my mental problems to be worse. Then I could actually work on the other shit a little bit, right? Um, I always knew I was interested in healthcare. When I was a little kid, I was always interested in medicine, and I told a story when I was a little kid. I asked the doctor questions. Like, I have this memory when I was like, God, I was in grade school. I was still living in Jersey City, so I was less than 9 years old. Maybe it was 8, maybe it was 7. I don't know, but it was 8 or 7. And I had chicken pox, and my mom took me to the pediatrician in Journal Square, Jersey City. And she looked at me and said, "Oh, that's chicken pox." And I remember asking her because I was curious, and I'm like, "How do you know that?" It's like, how? And she thought this was the funniest thing ever that a little kid would ever ask how you could make a diagnosis. And she was cool about it because after she laughed, she got down to my level so she could talk to me because I was little. And she showed me and she explained, like, and I still remember what she said. I didn't understand all the words she used, but I remember a lot of them. And she said, "Do you see how it's an even fluid filled vesicle and there's redness there? That's how I know that's a chickenpox vesicle." And I was like, "Okay." I literally remember her teaching me these things. I was also obviously really into art. And I remember when I was really little, I thought I'm just going to be an artist. I was like, well, when I was really, really little, I didn't realize how the economy works. I was like, well, I'm good at art, so I'll be an artist, right? And then I remember as I got older, I was like, you can't just be an artist, right? It's actually really hard to do that. But those were my two interests always. And I remember when I was like 6, when I was in Catholic school, and they asked what I wanted to be when I grew up. I was like, oh, a nurse. Because when I was that age, I thought nurses were female doctors when I was that little. But the point I'm trying to make is I was always really interested in medicine and art, and I still am, obviously. So when I was recovering, I've also been really, really, really into animals since I was a little kid. When I was a little kid, I would pretend to be a cat. I was super obsessed with cats, and then I got into dogs when I got a dog. I've always liked all animals. Um, but yeah, when I was recovering, I said to myself, I want to be a veterinarian. I want to be like healthcare for animals. But I went into human nursing for that reason. I was like, no, if you just work with animals, you're going to stagnate in your recovery. You need to unlearn these social problems you have. And also another reason I went into it is I investigated the schooling required, and I was like, yeah, being a vet is like being a doctor, and I'm so far behind now because my crisis lasted from 15 to 20, and I'm broke as fuck. My family's poor as shit. So I don't have time to go to school all this time to become a veterinarian. It's not that I couldn't do it. It's that I was like, I need to start making money fast. Like, I can't have anything with prolonged schooling. And that's what made RN attractive to me. And that was both medicine. It was very immersive with humans to help unlearn all my fucked up problems. And they had so many routes to entry. Like, you had the LPN, you had the ADN diploma in nursing, which is what I took, because that was the fastest route to be a RN. And then, of course, you had BSN, you had all these routes. They made all these educational routes. Later, I would get my BSN. Um, but, for many years, I was an ADN diploma of nursing. Um, yeah, that's why that happened, right? But my first love was always animals. So in a way, what they've done to me isn't that bad. Like, I'm happy a lot. I love animals, always loved animals. I wanted to be a vet nurse. I wanted to be a veterinarian. And I'm happy a lot, right? And I look at people like Ghislaine, like I was saying, how they say my life is sad, but it's really not. What was done to me is sad, but my life itself is not sad. Ghislaine's life is sad. They do this thing where they make villains and victims, and they get you to react in binary ways. It's done to me, right? But if you look at Ghislaine, I'm almost certain this is how her life went. She was born into a rich elite family. Her father, Robert Maxwell, was a triple agent. He was a Mossad agent. He was a CIA agent. He was KGB. Almost certainly her family was into that weird Satan bullshit. There's a lot of whisper conspiracies about this, like Epstein's temple is a mockery of a Jewish temple. Um, I don't know why you'd build that, but I do know this. I know a lot of these elites do weird occult shit. That's not a conspiracy. In the beginning, when they were first raping me, they would rape me while screaming, I'm a Christian. Okay? You think I'm fucking with you? Like, in case someone's reading this or watching this who isn't one of them, that shit's real. Like, they really, like, some of them are really into weird, like, symbolizing their sociopathy with occult bullshit, right? And so when they attack people, they scream they're Christians. It's real weird shit, right? So I bet anything she was about that, her family. Um, because they're all weird degenerates and they do things to teenagers and kids, almost certainly she was a victim. Let's be real. You don't just start raping other girls when you're a female who is otherwise typical. Most common reason women do that kind of shit, where they take a child and they're an adult and they sexually assault them and help men do that, is that they are victims too. This is unlike male abusers, where sometimes they're victims and sometimes they're not, simply because violent sociopathy, of which rape is exemplified, is a 90% male disease. When you see females doing that, it's possible they're just random sociopaths, but it's much more likely that they're not random sociopaths and instead they're really fucked up from abuse. This is what makes male abusers and female abusers different. Because there's something about maleness in context genetic predisposition to sociopathy that makes you do it even if nothing happens to you. We have data on this. You look at a case of a male who's never been abused, had a normal family, people like Dahmer, they just want to eat people and rape them. Like, there are guys, and I'm going to say guys like that. There's something about the male hormone milieu in the brain and genetic predisposition to callousness and sociopathy that allows that to happen. That is far less likely for a female, meaning for no reason, no precipitating factor, no traumas, no abuse, no it was done to you, you still do that. But it is absolutely common for males. I mean, it's not common in the sense of all males, but of people like that, the ones who are like that, weird, sadistic abusers and rapists, if they are male, it does not necessarily mean they're doing it out of their own trauma. It just means they're a hypofrontal brain damage sociopath where the testosterone has eaten away parts of their brain. They're now like a monster. And you look at it like, what happened to you? And it's like nothing. Nothing at all. I watched this documentary about this 19-year-old male. It's the hormones in the brain, right? And his family was perfectly normal. All his siblings were normal. And for no reason at all, he just had intense fantasies of committing murder. And he was so bizarre, his students, his fellow classmates called him Dahmer. He was obsessed with Jeffrey Dahmer. And then just one day, he decided to beat and stab to death a man he thought was homeless. And he was looking for a vulnerable person to do this to. And he just found one day, and he said he just cut him up, cut his body parts up, put the head and hands in his freezer. And he was living with his parents, and his parents discovered it. Absolutely nothing happens to him to make him like that. It's just, this is why I want to convey. When females behave like sociopaths, it's a hormone thing and a brain thing. It's biological. The most common reason that is abuse. When males behave like sociopaths, the most common reason that is being exposed to male hormones in context genetic predisposition to be a sociopath literally breaks their brain down so that they are now sociopaths. Does that make sense? Am I getting through to you? Male and female brains are very different. And illnesses that different humans can get are also not evenly distributed along sex-based lines because of this, because of how hormones affect. They literally, you can do research on this. Like, there are parts of the brain that influence aggression and sexuality and things like this. And hormones not only change the activation and can be changed, like you can change to female hormones, but they change how the brain looks. It literally causes parts to die off or to grow. So it's the kind of thing you can't even change it by changing hormones, right? Once you're exposed to that and you go through puberty in context or genetic predisposition, you could end up with a complete nub of a prefrontal cortex and you're just a violent person. Violent. You easily engage in violence. And that's why violent crimes are all committed by young males, because they're of the age where they're exposed to testosterone and their brains being whittled down. And the ones who already have weaker brains at baseline, especially, are more likely to go through that puberty that's changing their brain, and now they're just randomly violent. This is why the worst violent criminals are all males. And the same is true of like really weird psychopaths who are into rape for no reason and killing people and shit. This is not true of females. The most common reason females do that is psychologically processing abuse in a very dysfunctional way. Yeah, so you can just look at Ghislaine and you know that's what happened. Like, she was raped, she was molested, it happened when she was young, and it disrupted her identity development. And because she was a victim, Now, I'm not saying everyone, because a lot of women are victims of sexual abuse. A lot of women are victims of abuse as a child, but a percent of them have an extremely dysfunctional coping mechanism where they say to themselves, I'm going to become more male like, and to me, male like is an abuser. And you can see this is what happened. This is why she was into it. She partnered with Epstein, and she was getting a psychological sense of healing, safety, extremely dysfunctionally by being the one to now rape these teenage girls. And you can even see the transformation as she was doing this. She started out presenting very feminine. She had long shoulder length hair and she was an attractive woman. And as she did this more and more, she started looking very gender ambiguous. She would wear very cropped hair, looking very boyish. And that's another thing. A lot of victims will get gender confusion. Not all of them will become abusers, but a percent of them get gender confusion and become abusers too. They partner with a male and they get this sense of psychological safety by becoming what hurt them, right? And the saddest part of her life is not only that she coped with being a victim herself, so fucked up for so long. I could just imagine it every time she did this and she felt a sadistic high harming these girls. What she was really getting out of that was, now I'm safe. Isn't that sad? Isn't that a pathetic life? And becoming more distant from who she really is, becoming more and more like these degenerate psychopaths. And then in the end, where does she end up? In prison. And the only one that we know that's getting shamed, that's getting any kind of criminal punitive, is the female who was abused and mind fucked into becoming an abuser and helping. Don't you find that? I find that pitifully sad. And it's why I can't hate Ghislaine that much. I mean, I hate her. She's shit, but I feel like she's less shit than someone like Epstein. She's less shit than someone like Bill Clinton. She's less shit than someone like Ehud Barak. She's less shit than someone like Trump. In the sense, she became who she is by being abused and coping really badly. They became who they are because they're male psychopaths. It's just like that 19-year-old kid, like, why did you kill the drifter? I just felt like it. And you look at the family, it's fine. Dahmer, nothing happened to Dahmer. Dahmer had a great middle class white boy life. Why did you eat those boys? Just felt like it. You know, those people are the real, the where this starts from, right? And who goes down? The one coping with trauma in a really bad way, where she's probably touched and done weird Satan shit with Robert Maxwell, and she's got all these fucked up feelings, and then she ends up this 35-year-old woman. Every time she rapes a girl, she's like, oh, I'll never be raped again. And now she's in prison begging for a puppy and special toilet paper and shit. And not only is that the case, but the entire world is blaming her as if she did this. While the ones who really did it, the Democrats, the MAGAs, the men, go on to do it again. And here she is, the face of it. Now that is a pitiful, sad life. That's a sad life. My life isn't sad. What was done to me was sad. What was done to me was an injustice. But my life isn't sad. That's a sad. A life can only be sad if the responsibility for why it's sad is on you. Like, at any given time, she could have made a different choice. Unlike me, there's nothing I could have done to prevent me from being raped, to prevent me from being one of the Epstein-like victims and a MAGA scapegoat prop all in one. There's no choice I could have made. Nothing. And when I was targeted as a teenager, I was unwell. I was vulnerable and I was abused. Just like those girls in Epstein. I am a victim. There's nothing I could have chosen. And all of the choices I did make were good. The ones where I did have control of my life, I made good choices. Ghislaine is the opposite. From the moment she got out in the world after going through what she went through, she made bad choice after bad choice. And now she's in prison and the world is laughing at her, calling her a disgusting sex offending freak. And the real ones go free. They're celebrated. Oh, Clinton's so ethical. He said he don't like MAGA. Ooh, Dershowitz said he kept his pants on. Like, there's nothing happened to these people. But she's known as the disgusting rapist, and she's in prison. And she's a victim herself. Her life was sad. That's a sad life. A sad life isn't when bad things happen to you out of your control. It's when you spent 50 fucking years making bad choices until you end up in prison. That's a sad life. The sad part isn't that bad things are happening to you out of your control. It's what you do in response. Like when she was abused as a kid by these weirdos, like calling themselves ballists or whatever the fuck they were doing, and rural intelligence community. She could have made a choice, like, I'm gonna get away from these people, I'm gonna rebuild my life, I'm gonna do something else. But she didn't. She stayed and she got weirder and weirder and weirder until she ended up, her face is now synonymous with a weird child rapist. And the weird child rapists that did that to her are all walking free and celebrated as great people. Buy their book. Listen to Bill Clinton say how she doesn't like MAGA. That's a sad life. That's a sad, sad life.